Hello, everybody. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas to all the viewers out there of the Erudite Bibliophile with Wanderlust and all the readers all over the world. Because, boy, do I have a fun Christmas afternoon for you all planned. I am here with the undeclared Christmas movie and tradition aficionado, Rachel McMillan, who has the perfect stocking stuffer book and cozy Christmas read for you with her new book, A Very Merry Holiday Movie Guide.
Here it
Right
is.
there's that beautiful
Yep.
copy. That is needed this year more than ever. So thank you, Rachel, for being here and warmest greetings.
Oh, thank you very much. Merry Christmas. Thank you for having me.
Yes. And I also wanted to point out to everybody, we wanted to say thank you to Rachel because speaking of Christmas, she has offered a book giveaway to one lucky reader who views the video. And also, I have these beautiful holiday collection earrings from Wilder Boutique. And she's also offered a identical pair of these to kind of go with our Christmas fun afternoon. So thank you to Rachel and Wilder Boutique.
That's great. Those are gorgeous.
So I wanted to see if you could kind of go a little bit more in depth
Yeah.
about the book because even though yes, it's the central theme is made for TV Christmas movies, which for all good reason, millions tune in to these premieres. But it's so much more than that too. Even if you're not a made for TV
Mhm.
Christmas movie fan, there's so many other things you have in the book as far as festive facts, activity suggestions, ideas for new traditions, recipes. I mean, it's a holiday gold mine. So I would just love if you could just go in a little bit more
Yeah.
depth about the book.
So what I did was I created a book that is basically, and I don't remember how many, sorry, 16 themed chapters for every possible Christmas lover. And of course, the main theme throughout the book is made for TV Christmas movies. You're not going to get your It's a Wonderful Life and White Christmas. This is specifically for TV Christmas movies. But I wanted to branch out from that since they're so popular. I wanted to give people an idea of on how to incorporate them while acting out some of the things we love about them, which is that they're set in very Christmassy places, that they often make us feel nostalgic for times with cookie baking and carol singing. And as you say, this year, when we can't go out and see people or do anything or travel, a lot of us are going to have to capitalize on the fact that we can make our own Christmas experiences. And so that's kind of, even though every chapter has a curated viewing list of some of the movies that I love that match, say, the book lover's Christmas or the baker's Christmas, I also give you Christmas card hacks, Christmas letter writing tips. One of my Christmas trivia. I'm in my other, like, I'm first and foremost a historical fiction writer, so I can't write anything without having some kind of historical facts. So I take us into like the history behind who was King Wenceslas and where did Christmas trees come from. It basically has a little bit of something for everybody, including, I'm a Toronto girl and I'm a single girl in Toronto, so I have a city lover's Christmas. It's got holiday movie bingo. It's got a choose your own adventure where you can choose your own made for TV Christmas movie
Love that
hero.
one.
Um, it is basically the happiest little book ever, and I believe I read some kind of statistic that said in pretty much every household in America, at least one person watches these, and so
Wow.
so they're massively popular. This year, their viewership has skyrocketed. So you are going to know somebody who loves these films, and I tried to tap in on the fact that you can make new traditions with your family, that you can use them to inspire you to give back in some kind of way. But it's really about taking the values of these films, which clearly attract to people because they're watched all over the world, and giving you ideas on how you can implement them in your own home. So hopefully people like it. I had a lot of fun writing it.
Well, it's like you just said, it sounds like hashtag make your joy. Like you said,
Yeah.
make your joy. Like take over the Christmas season. And because of what's going on in the world right now, we can't do the normal traditions or some of the
Mhm.
normal things we would be doing. So make your you this is a book kind of like a guide to help make your own joy.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's really amazing that, I was writing it and editing it last Christmas, and I'm going to confess it to all of you. I was like, how can I write for a job that allows me to watch made for TV Christmas movies, which I want to do anyway?
How
Now
can I get paid for
research.
my favorite hobby?
Yeah. So I was writing it, and I never anticipated that this year it would be so moving, because it really is all about a throwback to simpler times. And I think that is why people love these films so much, is that it's about family and tradition and Christmas, and you don't have to spend a lot of money or go across the world. It's all around you. And I think that this is the perfect year to make a royal tea and watch, One Royal Holiday, or make candy cane reindeer. And I just think that there's something in there and it's very family oriented, as these films are. Anyone can walk in, and you've got kids at home, you don't have to be worried about what content they're seeing. So
yeah, I feel like, that's kind of one of the big appeals of Hallmark movies, is they are so family oriented. They can be watched multi-generational, across family members, and you don't have to worry about who's in the room, and it's kind of like the elephant in the room. I feel like some people kind of look down on people who watch Hallmark Christmas movies, or they kind of make fun of like the predictability about them. But actually, Hallmarkies like us, like, we kind of embrace the predictability. We have like bingo games like that literally center around the predictability of these movies. We count on that predictability. I mean, I think that after this pandemic is over, we're going to have a whole new slew of Hallmarkies into our tribe, because I think people are going to really understand and kind of support whatever tradition brings you joy in this holiday season, whether it's watching Christmas movies or what it was. And like you said, there's this appeal to people who watch these Christmas movies. It's a return to, Christmas magic and joy and comfort and nostalgia of your childhood and, simpler times. And I think people this year, like you said, I've never seen so many people putting up a Christmas tree and the Christmas decorations before Thanksgiving ever before, putting on the Christmas movies, putting on the Christmas music. So, I mean, I think people are going to embrace, find whatever brings you joy and understand kind of this love that we all have for these Christmas movies.
And I think that the low angst of them, they're low angst. There's not, the biggest problem is the cookie factory going to shut down? You know it won't, because God will show up and save the day. Or will there be snow on Christmas? When we first, in Canada, when our lockdown was first announced in March, there was a station here that started playing these Christmas movies 24/7. It's like that was, and Hallmark started showing them in the States. And even though it wasn't on the traditional programming, it's like, how are we going to save this horrible year? There's something about them. And yes, they tend to be a little cheesy, but the movies are very self-aware of what they are. I mean, you're not watching, you can't expect Citizen Kane or when you sit down to Hallmark, but you're not supposed to.
Right.
They're a genre that is supposed to make people feel uplifted, that love always wins, that family is the most important thing, that money can't buy you happiness, that you should chase your dream of opening a Christmas hat shop. And I truthfully think that people who can't see the light of those, it's not for them.
Yeah.
But I do think a lot of people are just accepting them for what they are. And that's why we see so many dozens of them a year. They're clearly being watched all over, which is great.
Yeah, because I challenge you not to feel, happiness after you watch these happy endings and, Christmas joy. And it leaves you, like you said, with a certain feeling,
Yeah.
So, and you kind of brought up a second ago about the 16 movie lovers.
Oh yeah, my chapters. Yeah.
And so I did want to kind of go a little bit more into so many fun aspects of the book. You have all these mini quizzes. And so, but one of them, like you said, was the 16 movie lovers. And so I was going to kind of list a couple of examples, because of course we all want to know what Rachel is, but I will kind of list a couple of examples so that for the viewers at home, think to yourself kind of, well, where would I fall into this? And so we've got a couple different ones. We've got, as Rachel mentioned, the book lovers Christmas, the music lovers, the shoppers, the fashion, the baker's Christmas, the romantic's Christmas, and the antithesis of the city lover's Christmas, she mentioned the homebody's Christmas. So everybody out there kind of think about where you might fall. And then Rachel, we're dying to know, what are you?
Oh, it's so hard because there's a lot of me in this. I would say I am definitely a book. I'm a voracious reader. Like, books are my power. They battery power me. I'm a hopeless romantic. Just the most romantic. My birthday's on Valentine's Day. Like,
you were like
I was meant.
You're like, Mom, Dad, you made this.
So, I would say that this year, and it's hitting me hard, is my favorite part of Christmas is the music and the carols. And I usually go and see a performance of Handel's Messiah. I go to see the Nutcracker. I go to see, Corelli's Christmas concertos, and everything shut down. But one of my favorite things is to go into my church, which is this beautiful Edwardian place, and just sing carols,
Oh, yes.
And churches are closed too. So, and Zoom just doesn't cut it. But I'm definitely a music lover's Christmas. And I love, there's a vintage lovers chapter, and I really do love the old traditions and where Christmas, our modern traditions of Christmas, where they came from, how this all happened. Whether you approach Christmas from a secular viewpoint or whether you're a religious person, there's a wonderful history behind it. And at the heart of that is always just wonderful, positive things about giving and about trying to usher in a new year as a better, more aware person. So I would say I'm a lot of different things, but book lovers, I'll tell you what I'm not, baker. I am bad in the kitchen.
Luckily, my sister-in-law and my husband are amazing. So
yeah, that is not
definitely not me either. But it's funny that you mentioned that. I could probably pick out from like my best friends each one which one they are. Because you said there's something for everybody. And then another quiz that's super fun in the book, in addition to the make your own Christmas movie that you mentioned, was finding out what your Christmas movie name is.
Yes. And those are all names from actual Hallmark movies and
I didn't know that part.
I did not.
Rachel just came up with like the best.
I have watched so many of these that they are at least in all of them once. I can't always remember which film, but they're legitimate names.
Hilarious. Well, I am. You pick the first letter of your first name and then your birth month. And I'm pleased to meet you, Rachel. I am Ivy St. Nicholas. Nice to meet you. Do you remember what you are?
I don't, and I'm trying to find.
I marked it so that in case you forgot.
Oh, good.
What's your birth? February's your birth month. So you are Angel, and then February is Kringle. Hey, Angel Kringle, how are you doing today? Do you think that shows Angel Kringle?
They're so fun. Yeah, I had a lot of, and also I just realized, we didn't put everything in the book that I came up with. It was just
as far as quizzes and stuff, little activities.
Yeah, I just could, there's just so much to do. One of my favorite things to write.
You have to tell us some hidden content then. What didn't make the book?
There were more quizzes for sure. There were movies I had to cut. I really wanted to do more of like the historical time travel Christmas movies. There's like a subgenre of those.
That's true.
But I will tell you that one of my favorite things was anything to do with like mix and match your holiday Christmas romance, where I came up with a meet cute and what kind of hero you'll end up with. That, because I'm such a romantic and I love that part of these films. Like, are you going to be a big city marketing guru who falls in love with a Christmas tree farmer?
Right.
So there was more of that kind of stuff. But you also, with a book like this, you want to give the illustrations are gorgeous. They're by Laura Bean. She did the illustrations for this is our second book together. I wrote a book about independent travel called Dream Plan and Go. It's all about solo travel. She did the illustrations for that. She did this one, and the palette is to be like a bit of a candy cane.
Yeah.
So red and white and
such a distinct red, white, and black color.
Yeah.
It was paired so perfectly with the book, and it's adorable, as are her illustrations for your travel book. I want you to talk a little bit more about her, because they're I love them. They're adorable.
She's fantastic. And I think that it was, the color palette, but also if you watch Hallmark movies and you watch Lifetime movies, you'll notice that there's a specific color palette for them too. If you have them on mute while you're wrapping presents or baking cookies, there's always going to be green, red, or silver or gold in the frame. And often Hallmark heroines end up having a color palette in their wardrobes. So there was one I was watching with Alicia Witt, who's probably my favorite of the actresses, Mistletoe Inn, and she's either wearing cranberry or green or red or white throughout the film. So even the costume choices are Christmas.
All
which
these
I just love.
things that we don't that make it what it is, but we don't even know.
Watch and see what the Hallmark heroines are wearing. It's usually some kind of Christmas color, which I just love. So
when she did your book, the travel book, did you know her before that, or was that something the publisher presented?
The editor of this book who acquired, so she's the one who went and pitched the book idea and said, let's hire Rachel to do this. She had admired Laura Bean's work for a very long time. And so she wrote her and said, listen, we're pitching this book. Would you consider doing illustrations? And it worked really well. The illustrations are adorable. So when this book idea came up, we just got her back.
Okay. And hey, guess what? We got a second book.
Yeah. And I think that what's interesting is people would ask, well, how did she know? And I just gave her a lot of ideas, lots of one-word ideas of, I wanted the book to have a bit of a vintage feel.
Yes.
In that I wanted more classic. I wanted more classic ideas for some of the illustrations so that it didn't look too modern or digital, because Christmas is a time where we do tend to throw back. Yeah. I also wanted to see women engaging with these movies in many different ways. So on their phones or on their laptops, because we experiencing, I used to watch these before I started writing full time, I was working in a corporate job and I would take the subway and I used to watch them on my phone with my earbuds in. And I remember looking over and someone was watching the same Cameron Bure film that I was. And I was like, this is how people engage with it. So I gave her lots of ideas, and then she sent little illustrations and swatches, and I could just tell, as you can as the reader, that she had a lot of fun doing this. And I think that is wonderful. This was just a joy. This was such a joy to do. Books are hard and book writing is hard. And when you get to do these projects that just allow you to use a different part of your creative brain, it's so wonderful. So if you want to find Laura Bean, you just LauraBean, and you can find her. She's on Instagram. She's always sharing her illustrations. She has a beautiful little family in Chicago, and she's just a delight to follow. So definitely check her out.
Well, and they can also, if people want to look kind of more at the book and her illustrations, the publisher, Harvest House, had to take over for a day on their Instagram page. And so you did a lot of these things, and they've put a lot on their Instagram. So check out the Instagrams, everybody, of Laura and the publisher. You'll
you're gorgeous.
Yeah. So, curious, when you researched content for this book, did you learn anything new? Because I particularly enjoyed learning the behind the scenes tidbits and nuggets you gave us about our famous Christmas classic movies and food and carols, and kind of seeing the evolution of the looks of Santa and the candy cane, and all these behind the scenes things you did. So I was just curious if you learned anything new when you researched the.
I have to confess that I spend so much time reading historical fiction and history that a lot of this stuff, I didn't have to look up as many. I just kind of knew what I wanted to include. I love the idea of this Christmas truce in World War I, where both sides stopped and sang Silent Night. So a lot of this is my personality, just stuff that I'm interested in anyways. So the story about, yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus, the Coca-Cola Santa from the Depression, that's stuff that I just had rolling around in my brain that I just kind of put into this. So you get a lot of just my personal interests that I'm sharing. So that didn't take a lot of research. What I did have fun with was looking at the evolution of how these films became so popular. And, the Hallmark premiere garners more viewers than say a big premiere like The Walking Dead on AMC, which is, I just can't believe that. It's the fact that they went from making like 12 a year to 92. The fact that it's within the past 7 years that people have just started embracing them. Now Netflix makes them, Amazon Prime makes them, ABC Spark makes them. And I think that what I loved seeing, and this was my favorite part of research, is that it really correlates with what is happening in the world. And when there is a US election year, Hallmark movie premiere viewership goes up. And I think it's because there's so much in the world that's very, anxiety inducing. There's news, there's, all of this stuff that people want to escape. And so the fact that these films are popular already, but the stats on the viewers during 2020 skyrocketed.
Yeah.
I'm just impressed that they made so many of these during lockdown. I just can't.
I didn't either.
Most of them are filmed in Canada, usually in BC. And so the actors would have to come from the States if they're American and quarantine for 14 days and then film. And I mean, we got to give them kudos for making these work in a year where in March I was like, okay, we're shutting down. What does this mean for Hallmark movies? I was already thinking ahead.
Have you, since a lot of them are filmed in Canada, have you ever got to go to like a set or see them shoot a scene?
No, but I will say that it's just so obvious that they're filmed in Canada because they'll do that. A lot of them most of them are in Vancouver, and I'm in Toronto, but it's funny because they'll do that. The opening credits will have this city skyscraper overview, the stock footage, and then you just land and it's like, this is clearly Vancouver, or this is clearly Toronto. I haven't run into an actual filming, but someday it is the dream to just be like, oh my gosh, it's my mecca. It's my Hallmark movies. But yes,
you've got to get your publisher to send like a bunch of these books to
I know.
And like Hallmark producers, either for them to make one of your books into a movie, or for you to get to star in one with her or something.
I will say that one of the coolest almost Hallmark moments I had was last year. I was in Vienna researching a book while they were just starting to film Christmas in Vienna.
You were there when they started filming.
And I was like, are you kidding me? They're doing a Hallmark Vienna movie? It was like amazing. So I was just leaving when they started filming, but it's like I had to go to the other side of the world. So I didn't see any of no, but I was following the behind the scenes and people who have like the little tidbits of what's coming. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're doing. So I watched Christmas in Vienna and it was like, yeah, that was my experience last year. Same Christmas market, same outline. I'm so excited that, they film in Winnipeg a lot. I'm excited that they're using more of these foreign locations. Yeah. Because it allows people, especially this year, to travel when we can't. So.
Or two, maybe opens the doors for people to be like, oh, I want to go there. That might not have been that location, to make it more accessible to everybody too, and kind of spark the travel bug and the Wanderlust bug that I know me and you share.
Yes, it's been hard for that, but so that was a cool thing. I was like, my two favorite things, Vienna and Hallmark together. It was great.
So speaking of Canada, I know that for you guys, Thanksgiving is more mid-October.
Yes.
And so here, where a lot of people tend to kind of wait to start their Christmas season after Thanksgiving, for you, that would be like mid-October.
Yeah.
Or if you waited till like your Remembrance Day, mid-November, that'd be mid-November. So do you start that early? Like for us, it's more like in November, December. Are you starting mid-October, mid-November?
This year, I put twinkle lights up like October the 7th because I'm just it's been such a hard year. I mean, I live on my own. I've been able to see my parents and a few members of my family, but we have been in pretty intense lockdowns. So I just wanted to find all the joy that I possibly could. And I also started listening to the Christmas music early. Of course, this came out on the 6th. so I've had to do a lot
Oh.
of promotion for it. So I've been in a Christmas mood. I read a lot of Christmas-themed novellas and books, and I start that in October. But traditionally, in my family history and in my personal decorating history, I usually wait till after November 11th, which is our Remembrance Day.
Yes.
So then I transfer. My dad always said, you know, as soon as American Thanksgiving happens, and I'm like, no, I want Christmas to start now.
Oh, so he would rather prefer like how we do it, starting after.
Well, yeah, but I think it got early. As a kid, I was like, no, but can we put our Christmas tree up earlier than that? I just wanted to like stretch it out as long as possible.
And then
you know,
side your mom on your side or your dad's side?
she wants us all to be happy, so I think she's a very good diplomatic negotiator. But I think that, you know, this year Christmas is what if people want to keep up their tree till April, then just do it. I really think there's no judgment. Anything that makes people happy. And I know people who just can't do Christmas in the way that they'd like to, so they're throwing a Christmas in July. And I think that's great. Oh, I should mention that I also have Christmas in July shout out here, because Hallmark does a whole month of Christmas movies in the middle of the summer. You can make fun Christmas type drinks, and I've got some ideas for that.
So if everybody postpone their family Christmas, you've got a whole kind of idea of how they could make a big Christmas in July party.
Yeah. And I think it's really important. I was saying this on another call another Zoom the other day, that if people are finding it too hard this year, if the traditions are just making them feel more disconnected or lonely, then this might be the year to go into the book or watch a Hallmark movie and try and find something that for this year is just a little bit different. You're acknowledging things you love about the holiday without the pressure of it making you feel even worse. Because I think if we put too much emphasis on ourselves to try and make this Christmas season normal, it's going to be very difficult. So I was talking to a gentleman who hosts a Christmas podcast, and he was saying that, you know, he has kids, and that has to be hard because as a kid, Christmas is the biggest thing. So what they're doing is, for this year alone, they're making one-time only traditions to give the kids a new, and then next year it'll go back to however.
So now because they have these new ones to.
Yeah, and this
like you said, book at the end, you talked about it. Focusing on like a brilliantly imperfect Christmas. On a perfect one. So that kind of goes with what you're saying. Like, it's brilliantly imperfect this year.
It really, because I think that people try too hard. If you focus on making it something, usually the memories are in the in-between. The stuff you take away is often the spontaneous stuff. The stuff that you remember is not that the table was set perfectly, but that, you know, the one year the turkey was burnt and everybody ordered Chinese food, or the one year that the Christmas tree fell over, so you had to improvise. I think that those are always
the best stories later.
They're the best stories, and they're the ones that people laugh at. That those are my favorite, is the laugh at.
I mean, hence like the popularity of National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Yeah.
Right? When everything goes awry, it's the perfect story.
It is. And I think that is just my favorite part of Christmas, is when, you know, you've got all this, you're focusing on warmth and love and family and tradition, and all of it is terrible and not how you pictured it, and it ends up being even better. So hopefully that this year it'll be a memorable Christmas, because 2020 is memorable.
Well, what other differences do you notice between the decorations and the celebrations in Canada and America, between the two countries? Like we talked about, kind of when you start, the starting point might be different, but what other differences do you notice?
I would say that, I mean, we've kind of appropriated Black Friday here, but it's not a Canadian thing. A huge difference is that Boxing Day is our big sale day. So Boxing Day it's in the book, but it started as a tradition in England. We're still technically a colony, so a lot of the British traditions just come over here.
You guys do like crackers, those crackers?
Yes, the Christmas crackers. Yeah. Not at every household, but around. But Boxing Day, you know, it's when the sales happen. So people, and it's a statutory holiday, which was great at any job I had, where you know, you get time and a half for Christmas Day and Boxing Day. That's a big difference. But as opposed to, I think the traditions are very similar. I do notice that some of the Thanksgiving dishes are a little different. I think it depends on what state you're in too. I mean, just like
Yeah.
Canada has different provinces, but I know that, mac and cheese is a side dish for many American Thanksgiving dinners, and that just fascinates and entices me. I mean, invite me. I love mac and cheese. um, and the football culture.
Oh,
We have
true.
football here, but it's not as big of a. So that's a
Do you have
difference.
any like like because here, like you said, there's a lot of bowl games and things
Yeah,
going on. Do you have a sport that's really going on high in that?
I know that during just after the Christmas break, and I don't even know if it's happening this year because 2020. I grew up in a family where like Boxing Day, World Junior Hockey started, and that
Oh, yeah.
oh hockey. And the World Juniors are the kids who are going to grow up to be the big time
Those
stars. Right?
eyes,
So
yeah.
they're very young. They're usually playing somewhere in the world.
Starting to watch who's sticking out there.
Yeah. So I come from a family where that is like, okay, it's World Juniors time. That was always overlapping with Christmas, which is
Are you a
exciting.
good skater? Do you ice skate or?
Oh no, I'm
Oh.
terrible. But my brother, for years, every Christmas Eve after our church Christmas Eve service, would go and play hockey with his friends.
That's his tradition.
It was just for years and years, and you kind of miss those simpler times sometimes. And then Jared would come home and from hockey, and it would almost be midnight, and yeah, it's good times.
That's awesome. Does he get together with friends and do hockey as one of his traditions?
I think this year is a little hard, and it's also, I was just Skyping him. He spends half of the year in Ireland. His wife is Irish, so they kind of divide their time. So he's actually not even here for Christmas. Not that people are having. I gotta say, not that people are having big family gatherings anyway. I might not have been able to see him anyway, but
right. But he actually gets to have like two cultures of Christmas.
Yeah,
he gets like double, like he gets the Canadian and the Irish.
Yeah, and midnight mass is a huge thing there. I've gone a few times now that my sister-in-law is part of our family. But yeah, it's gosh, I love this time of year. And that's
that was
what
another thing I liked in your book. You did talk a lot about other cultures and their celebration of Christmas. Like you've got like 10 ways to say Merry Christmas in 10 different languages. And I love learning about the other cultures too.
And because it's a lot of, even if it's not Christmas, a lot of the religious celebrations, there are many that happen during this time of year. Kwanzaa, for one.
Yeah.
I'm in Toronto. I live in a very Jewish populated neighborhood. So I walk, and it's so gorgeous. During Hanukkah, in the window, you don't have the Christmas tree, you've got the menorah.
Yeah.
And I love that. So it is a very, and Hallmark and Lifetime movies are starting to embrace this. They're starting to show more films that feature Hanukkah, which I think is amazing.
Yeah.
I'd like us to even branch out more, but yeah, there's, because Christmas is, of course, a religious holiday for Christians, a secular holiday with Santa Claus for so many. But a lot of the festivals and feasts for many different cultures happen at this time of year, which is fun. So that was fun to explore.
Well, and I know another part of your book you talked about, and this kind of goes back to what you were saying before, trying to infuse a little bit of that Christmas spirit and magic all year long, not just at Christmas. I mean, obviously, like you said, because of the pandemic, probably more people will be doing that next year. But what are ways that you try to kind of keep the joy and spirit and magic of Christmas kind of throughout the year, not just in December?
I tend to have a Christmas scene in every book I write. Even if it's a historical book, just one Christmas scene, it has to. I write, this summer I started writing a Christmas novella that just came out. You can find it on it's called Christmas in 3/4 Time. It's set in Vienna. It was my favorite city. And I read a lot of Christmas novellas and romances throughout the year. I do. I love them. It's my favorite time of the year. It's the time when I feel that romance is so wonderful to engage with. So and this year in 2020, when things got really kind of bleak, I listened to Christmas music in April. And one of the things I talk about in this is that I really realized how much these films speak to me was when I've had like health news about someone in my family that, you know, when someone's died or there's been tough times, I will go and turn on a Very Merry Mix-Up. It just really...
I loved how you said that in the book. You're like, I always have a copy of a
I
Very
always have a copy.
In case of emergency.
Yeah, it's on my laptop because there is nothing in the world that can take you out of the stress and anxiety of life. They're almost like fantasies in a way, right? There's a fantastical element. You know everything's going to turn out all right. You know that the girl is going to end up with the guy she's meant to be with. It's going to be happy and Christmassy, and I think they're very medicinal. So no judgment if people want to watch them in March.
Well, and you talked earlier about, and you'll see kind of in your movie recommendations, a lot of them do have Alicia Witt, and you kind of mentioned your favorite. So, what about her makes her your favorite Christmas actress? And do you have a favorite? This is for all the Hallmarkies out there. Do you have a favorite male Hallmark?
Oh yeah,
because there's some signature ones that appear in a lot of the movies.
Yeah.
So.
I think that what I like about Alicia Witt is, and if you follow her on social media, she just seems like the kindest human. She just loves life. And what I love about her in these films is she seems like she's genuinely delighted to be in them.
Yeah.
She is so authentic in her love of Christmas. So when Alicia Witt is in a Christmas scene and they're making cookies and she's in character, a little bit of that sparkle being her just having a good time being on the sets. So she is one I love. I also really love Kimberly Sustad. She was in 9 Lives of Christmas, Christmas by Starlight, which just came out. I just love her. And I think it's because it's the actresses who have a self-deprecating sense of humor, who just seem like genuinely wonderful human beings. Like
people you'd want to be friends with.
Friends, yeah. As far as Christmas guys go, I do really enjoy Michael Rady. I think he's a sweetheart. I love watching him. Again, he's got this natural warmth. Paul Campbell, who was in Window Wonderland, he was in Once Upon a Holiday, and this year he and Kim Sustad wrote Christmas by Starlight together.
Oh, whoa.
Both Canadian, both live in BC. They wrote it, they starred it together, they've got great chemistry, and I think I just love the actors and actresses that just seem like they're really having a good time. Yeah. Because how can you not? It's a Hallmark movie.
Well, and I read kind of recently an article that said like that were about a lot of the actors and actresses in Hallmark movies, and they were saying they're like, you know, who wouldn't want to work for Hallmark? They're like, you know, they have these set hours. Like it's such like an ideal working environment for an actor. They were like pointing out all the things that are like so positive for them, working for them, as opposed to a different TV series or movie.
Absolutely.
And all the behind the scenes tidbits, I was like, oh, I didn't realize it was so like, this is why you see some of the same actors in like 11 to 18 movies.
And I think that they're not a lot of time commitment. You do often come to Canada. Apparently it's a great crew and set environment. They keep using the same people. So you know, they're very, again, low angst. You don't have to get into a tortured mindset. Method acting to play a Christmas tree farmer. So I find it really delightful. One thing that I've noticed this year is that they're using more and more Broadway actors. Jeremy Jordan was in Holly and Ivy. Aaron Tveit was in One Royal Holiday. And Broadway people do these really well. They really stand out in these. I hope they keep using them. I think it's because they're used to learning lines quickly and having to establish chemistry very early on stage. They just work in this world well. So those guys were adorable.
Looking at your Christmas movie list, like, for actors and actresses, looking kind of through the app, the Hallmark movie app, it kind of made me realize how many. I mean, I remembered, but I also realized new ones, how many famous actors are in Hallmark Christmas movies and have starred previously in them. And so I put together, like, speaking in the element of fun quizzes, I put together a little fun quiz to kind of highlight the fact of, like, you know, when people kind of downgrade Hallmark Christmas movies, it's like, do you want to know who's been in these? Let me just remind you who has starred in these movies. So I'm going to go through a couple rounds of guys and a couple rounds of girls. And so there's 3 actors or actresses in each round. Pick the one that has not starred in a Hallmark Christmas.
Oh, okay. Oh, this is fun. Okay.
Okay. So the first round, Sam Hugan, Chris Pine, and Dermot Mulroney.
Chris Pine has not been in one.
That's
but
right.
I hope he's got a Hallmark name. Chris and Pine.
Chris Pine.
He should be in one.
I know some of these ones I picked, I'm like, why haven't they been in the Christmas movie? The next one is Sean Astin, Andy Garcia, and Christian Slater.
Christian Slater hasn't been in one.
Right. And then the last male group is Orlando Bloom, Oliver Hudson, and Danny Glover.
Oh, Orlando Bloom has not been in one.
That's right. Okay, on to the females.
Yay.
Mandy Moore, Kirsten Dunst, and Julia Stiles.
Kirsten Dunst hasn't been in one.
Right. Meghan Markle, Carrie Russell, and Jennifer Garner.
Jennifer Garner.
Right. But hey, everybody, if it's good enough for the Duchess, it's good enough for me. Meghan Markle.
I love that hers are good too. Meghan Markle was exceptionally good in these movies. She's busy, but.
And then the last grouping is Winona Ryder, Mariah Carey, and Shirley MacLaine.
Winona Ryder, because Mariah Carey was so in one with Lacey Chabert, and it's just. She's such a good sport about it too. It's just like, hey, we're gonna do this.
But it definitely, when I was like looking through the list and kind of like it definitely, some of those shocked me. I was like, wait, what? They started in a Hallmark movie? Like I was like going back. I'm like, I gotta put these to watch. It's like you don't realize half these people were started in Christmas movies before.
And a lot of them, a lot of the actresses who are in them now, it's almost like their second career. Like Danica McKellar, Lacey Chabert, Candace Bure, and that's another thing I love about Hallmark movies is they often have heroines who are in their late 30s, early 40s.
Yes.
You do not have to be 22 to be a Hallmark star. Often the romances are, Andie MacDowell's and so many of them. She's beautiful.
Right.
And I love that about these, that they show romance in different.
That the lead hero woman, is not the typical Hollywood age. Like, you'd be relegated to playing like the mom and grandma by now, kind of thing.
So Hallmark allows you to have these totally wonderful romantic comedy moments where if you were in Hollywood, your romantic comedy role might have changed. So I like that about these.
Well, and you talked earlier about your love of music and how so many festive traditions are centered around holiday performances and Christmas carols and things like that. And you mentioned a lot of these songs and things throughout the book. So do we have a Rachel McMillan Christmas Spotify playlist coming in our future?
I really should do that.
You should do that.
Yes, I will do that because I've got some, and music to me is very nostalgic. My dad always played. That's one thing we started in November is he'd start playing all the Christmas records and CDs. One of my earliest memories is hearing Carpenter's Christmas record. So it brings you back. Like they say, smell is a huge purveyor of memory, and music is as well. And my whole religious upbringing means that a lot of the carols were such a huge part of my life. So I should definitely make a Spotify because there's a lot of fun. I mean, there are at least 20 different versions of Last Christmas.
I was like, you probably know with like your love of music, you might know of like rendition or cover that's like not the mainstream that I've heard. You might know of some unique one that you could pull out that nobody's heard that would be like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that person sang that, like some unique ones I was thinking. So I was like,
I will definitely do that.
Playlist.
Yes. And I'll make sure that you get a copy of that. That would be a fun project for me. Also because I want to listen to Christmas music all the time.
Yeah, you're like, listen to Christmas music. Well, and kind of switching gears for everybody, for the people who aren't the Hallmarkies, let's talk more about just kind of your insight and your writing process details, because you write so many different genres. You're like a Jill of all trades when it comes to book genres. Everybody out there who's watching, she does not just write nonfiction of travel books and Christmas. She has written mysteries, contemporary romances, historical fiction. So
Yeah.
so many genres across the board. So talk to me about a little bit more about that. How to write across the genre board and so many different types.
It's hard, but honestly, in this day and age, I will say that if you want to make a career of writing, unless you're Stephen King, you can't just write. You want to write enough to be able to be well-rounded. My first passion is always going to be historical romance. I had a book come out this summer called The London Restoration. That was the book I was editing. Oh, it's there. Hi. Hi, book. Good lipstick on that model. So this was the book. I was editing it. It was a lot of intensive edits, and I was working on this one while I was finishing up that book. So that's my first love. So then I find that those are the books that take the intensive research and the intensive research trips, and they're like 350 page.
Yeah.
You know, they take a lot of brain work. So around that, I try to find ways that I give myself a mental break while also being able to produce books for people. And these gift type books like Dream Plan Go and its accompanying journal and Very Merry Movie Guide allow me to really remember why I love writing, as it was my hobby before I pursued publication. I wrote since I was a little kid. The contemporary romances I write, they're all set in Vienna. They're the 3/4 time series. They're very cheap on Kindle, by the way. I do those just to jumpstart my creativity in a different way. But as a writer who wants to primarily be a writer, you have to look for gaps, and you have to look for places that you can write a book that a publisher will be interested in. And this year, of course, Hallmark came out with their own Christmas movie book. I didn't know it was going to. It's called Christmas. It's out there. Had no idea it was happening. When I pitched the idea,
that's my idea.
yeah, well, when I pitched the idea for this book, it was because I didn't really see any book that was just for made for TV Christmas movies. And I thought, how can I just spend some time with something I really just genuinely love that gets me out of war-torn London during the Blitz for and so that's where it happens. But I would say for writers, you know, if you want to pursue publication and you want to try and make as much of a living as you can from it, it really helps to be able to be open to trying different things. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of how I look at these gift type books, as they're not as intensive brain work, and they just bring me a little bit of joy. They're quite a lot of fun to work on.
So how do you switch your mental mindset, though, if you're working on two totally different style books and genre at the same time? How do you
I have to compartmentalize. I really do chunk my time a lot, because there is a lot that has to do with a lot of this. You know, I had 4 books come out this year, and everything has been podcasts and Zooms, because we don't have the usual, you know, book signings, that kind of thing.
Which maybe for you is better, because you can be in like
days.
It took so many books.
You can reach so many new readers. You can do library Skypes in, you know, Japan. You can do book clubs. I love that. But you do have to chunk your time out, and you have to prioritize it. It is a lot of organization. I will say that I am in the enviable position where I don't have kids at home. I know a lot of writer friends who usually would write when their kids are at school. Now there's no school. Now they have kids all the time. Yeah. And so there are a lot of challenges to it, but I'm able to switch gears because I set aside a certain amount of time for each thing. But I'm also the girl who's always been able to read 4 different books at the same time.
Oh, okay.
I've got a bit of that. I can just go from one story world to the other.
Right. Well, and you kind of mentioned how many books you had come out this year, and I know that next year there's possibly 2 novels on the horizon.
There's 2 and counting.
What can you tell us about these 2 new books next year?
I've got some things that I can't talk about publicly yet, but I can say that I have a book coming out in August called The Mozart Code, and it is a historical romance about 2 people who are basically involved in trying to stop the Iron Curtain from falling in Vienna and Prague. So there's a lot of atmospheric stuff, but their missions lead them to the death mask of Mozart, which incidentally was found in a Vienna pawn shop in 1947.
Oh, wow.
People didn't even know it existed, and then it was. So I thought that's such a fascinating part of history.
Yeah.
So it's very
That was your
romantic.
grab, that
Yeah. So it's very romantic.
Prague,
Lots
or
of
was,
music.
did you get to go research? Is it
So
before COVID?
last
Okay.
November, just as they were starting to film Christmas in Vienna, I did spend a week in Vienna and a week in Prague specifically for this book. Not a hardship.
Yeah, that's it. I was like, I knew that part was definitely
That's the best part of writing. So that's one of the big ones I have coming out next year. So
the Mozart Code in August.
yes.
Okay.
And then more stuff. If you follow me on my social media, you'll see I try to update. I do have some other things in the works, including a book that's coming out where I am not the only contributor. There are two other authors
Cool.
who joined up, and that I'll have news on that as well soon. So yeah, stay tuned.
I've noticed that more author collaborations lately. It's been amazing.
Oh, it's so fun. It just is a way to get out of your own isolated world for a bit and really tap into a different type of creativity. So I can tell you it will be historical fiction, heavy on the romance, but that's coming in the pipeline too. Yeah.
So, as if people don't know, Rachel wears many hats. We talked about her being a author, but she's also a literary agent.
Yes.
And she also, I love this term she uses, she's a book gusher, which is like my favorite term for book enthusiast / blogger. And as she mentioned before, she's a voracious reader. So I feel like the viewers at home would love to hear some of your most favorite reads or best reads of 2020. Ooh. If they're looking for their next great read or Christmas gift for a loved one, what are some ones that you would recommend and throw out there?
It's such a good book year. Well, I love contemporary romance, and there is a book called Love Lettering by Kate Claiborne. I've read it a few times this year just because it's so delightful, and it's about a woman in New York City who sees the world she lives in through fonts. So she loves signs and fonts, and she falls in love with just this adorable guy, and it really transports you to New York City. New York becomes a character, which I just love. I loved a book called Set the Stars Alight by Amanda Dykes. It's set in 2 different time periods, and it features the excavation of an old ship. And it shows how if you study the stars, you can study the sea. It's beautiful. It's romantic. I loved it. I recently read a book called The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and it's fantastic.
I asked for that for Christmas because I've heard that from so many authors.
It is so good. It's about a woman who signs a deal with a dark force in 17th century France and is doomed to live forever, but no one can ever remember she existed. So you meet her, you forget her, except in modern day New York, one young bookseller named Henry remembers her and knows her name. Ooh. And it's chilling. I read it in like 2 sittings. So those are 3 that I really recommend. They're fantastic reads.
Thank you. Well, and I've heard you speak before about the power of books. Mm-hmm. And the importance of reading, especially if you want to be a writer. And it was so well articulated, and it's almost the way you talk about these things could be like a mantra for like bibliophiles and bookworms everywhere, because it's like chills the way you talk about the power of books and the love of reading. So if you could talk about that a little bit more, just like your views on that, just because you say it so well.
Oh, for a writer, I just don't know how you can possibly, a big part of writing, especially now, is being engaged with readers and other authors. And you cannot have a genuine connection with writers and readers if you don't have a common love of reading. So reading is the center of everything. If you do not read, you are not a writer. I don't think that you can be a writer. You need to be able to engage, but mostly you need to be able to find joy in reading. Because if you don't have it, you'll never find joy in writing.
Yeah.
Without being next to people, books are the surest way to find an immediate community. You are allowing people to recognize the most vulnerable parts of yourself when you say, I loved this book and this heroine. You can get to know someone so quickly when they're like, oh, me too, because she's like me in this way and this way. And you can connect with people in a deep sense with books because they're vulnerable, they're philosophical, they shape our ideologies, they reflect our religions, they reflect the questions we have in a way that you cannot bond over any other communal experience. So books are kind of the heart of any community, and they're essential to writers, but also they give you immediate kinship with an author when you open a page and think, oh, I thought this too. That's a bond you have with that story. They're also everlasting. You can never read a book the same way twice. I'm a voracious rereader. I like to go back. And you can never read a book the same way somebody else has read the book.
Because we all bring our own lives and
absolutely infinite possibilities. So reading is, and this year it's the only way to truly travel.
Yeah.
So, because we're all stuck at home. So I do I write, but I'm a reader first and foremost. It's my truest passion is books. I love books.
Well, and it's, you can see the power of books because what's the first thing that, if a dictator or country is trying to control information and things, what do they ban? What do they burn? What do they not want out there? And I've read some books recently that have kind of reminded me how lucky we are just to have such easy access to like free books at a library or that books you check out online for free. I mean, it's back in the day. I read a book that reminded me that it used to be only like really rich people or nobles or things like that had libraries, that had books, that had this wealth of information. Like laymen didn't get to, own their own books or just easily be able to pull a book off and just read knowledge and expand their mind and things like that. And so it's like we kind of take for granted now that I can so easily get these books and have access to any book we want.
We can one click them. Yeah, it wasn't really until World War II that the Penguin paperbacks came out and classics became accessible to everybody, which I think is amazing because that didn't happen. So everybody could read these works that usually the high academia or the rich people could read. But during the pandemic, I mean, even when our libraries were closed, they're open now for pickup and drop off, but I got everything on my phone. If I wanted to read, I've got an app, the app on my phone. I was getting books constantly or going to Kindle and getting books. You cannot run out of books. You can always get them. It's wonderful.
You're out of shelf space, but you're not going to run out of books.
Yeah.
But what you said earlier, too, just gave me a funny idea. It's like, because you talked about being a single gal. I feel like there should be like a blind date set up where like everybody has to wear a name tag of like the book that's them or that most represents them or that
that would be so cool.
You could find
I found my true love.
Yes, like an eHarmony, but like based on books, not based on
I think that would be a fantastic idea because
you're right. Like I didn't think about that. Is a huge window into who somebody is if you said, okay, tell me like the book that you can't stop thinking about or the most favorite book you read this year or what are you reading right now?
Yeah. Kind of my friend Allison has a litmus test for her closest friends that she can tell if they're going to be friends, really close friends, if they love this book and they genuinely love it. And I think that's wonderful. And I think a lot of us, without meaning to, have that same experience where it's like, oh, you love this book? No one's ever heard of this book. Now you're my best friend forever.
Yeah, I understand. Like, how do you deal with people who want to be like your immediate best friend? Because like you said, you expose yourself in these novels and probably there's lots of authors who people are like, I want to be your best friend because they're in your mind. Like they have this connection with you, even though you've never met them. they feel a connection.
And I love hearing that when people read something and get and pick up something that you didn't think people would pick up, or look at, you know, a character and get something about that character that you didn't realize that you were positing into the character, or just say, oh my gosh, I want to marry this guy you created, or I want her to be my best friend, or this book helped me feel that I was able to be vulnerable in a situation. It's a really powerful thing. And I talk about that a lot with, you know, my more literary historical fiction, but if I've had people write and just say that this saved their Christmas ideas because they didn't know what they were going to do when it's COVID. And that's a pretty powerful thing too.
Right. But you had that. Yeah.
There's no such thing as a wasted word for a writer. And as a reader, I would say the same thing. You can get something from every book that you read. So read more.
That's our own PSA of today.
Yeah.
Well, my last question is, I know you live in Canada, but I didn't know if you had any favorite indie bookstores in the States that you could kind of give a shout out to. So if you know, the readers wanted to buy any of those books that you mentioned for Christmas gifts or for their next read, they could either, because obviously indie bookstores ship all over, so they could either buy them directly from the indie bookstore, or there's this new website, bookshop.org, that is kind of like the antithesis of Amazon. You can go in there and put any book and it will support independent bookstores everywhere, so you could buy through them and support a general independent bookstore if you don't have a specific one you want to support. So I would love to hear kind of like what indie bookstores like you States that you would love to give a shout out to, or you've done, you know, book signings.
I love America. I travel in America quite often, except not now. My favorite city in the States is Boston. I've spent a lot of time in Boston. There is a store on Newbury Street called Trident Bookstore, and I would definitely look them up. They're fantastic. Every time I'm in New York, which is only an hour flight from Toronto when, you know, the border was open, my first stop is often the Strand. I have so many totes from the Strand, so I would definitely say they're worth looking into. And I really like Parnassus Books in Nashville because it features titles that are definitely curated by the bookstores that work there. But not only that, it's run by Ann Patchett, who is an author herself. And there's nobody in the world who has such a connection. But I would also shout out to our friends who do the Friends in Fiction Facebook, because every week they feature a different indie bookshop. I got to be a guest there in the summer, and it was amazing to like talk to Patty Henry and Kristen Armel, and their love for books is so genuine. And every episode they sponsor a different indie bookshop. Also, you get to hear amazing authors and guests. So check out their website. They're so easy to find. Just type in Friends in Fiction. They've got a great book loving thing going there. But those are three that I would definitely look up if you're an American indie bookshop seller or buyer, but also check out bookshop.org. They're doing wonderful things.
Well, just for viewers out there too, if you do want to go look at the Friends in Fiction that Rachel just mentioned, I just saw that they have a YouTube channel now too.
Oh yeah.
So they just launched that. So if you've missed, like say for example, you want to look up Rachel's appearance on that show, if you've missed any of that, not only do they have the Facebook page where you can watch the past videos, but you could go to the YouTube channel and you could watch Rachel's interview from months ago if you want to watch your favorite author appear on there, or you missed it. So definitely check her out on that. But I wanted to say, of course, congratulations on this.
Oh, thank you.
Trifecta of publishing that you have done this year.
What are you
that you have put out, and I want to wish you a happy holidays, and thank you so much for appearing on the Erudite Bibliophile with Wanderlust. I had such a fun Christmas afternoon with you.
Oh, thank you so
I hope
much.
all our viewers did too, and thank you for spending your time with us.
Thanks, and find me on social media, and I'll tell you what books I'm reading and what Hallmarks I'm watching, and have a Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Merry Christmas.